Right. We're all set.
Okay. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee. It is May 20th, and it is 6:44. Councilor Trumbull and other members of the committee that are here are Councilor Fortier, Councilor Dean, Councilor Yakubaka, and you're on, right? And Councilor Leonard. We also have Councilor Fish in attendance, City Finance Director Little, and Assistant or Deputy Solicitor? Assistant City Solicitor, Grace Ennis. So, first item is not on the agenda, it's a stormwater issue.
Yes, so I'd like to add this. I apologize. I missed the memo. It is a bid, but the contractor is ready to go. So we'd like to get this approved tonight. This is for the Montgomery Street Storm Drain Extension. We did go out to bid. We received 3 bids. They range from 107,000 to 193,000. The engineering department is recommending going with the low bidder, which is CNC Lynch Excavating for $107,078. That is over what we had budgeted for this work, which was 85,000. But there is savings from a culvert that we put in on State Street near Wing Park that we can transfer over to cover the rest of this. That project came in under budget, so we're looking for approval to enter into a contract with CNC Lynch Excavation for $107,078 for Montgomery Street Storm Drain Extension.
Questions on this item? Is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Second? And without objection, the people on Montgomery Street will be excited because as soon as they get this done, they'll be able to pave the street over there.
Yeah, I thought it needs to clear them.
Yeah, it's on the list for this season. So, item 1, quitclaim deed and development agreement 177 Pearl Street.
So in 2020, the city deeded 177 Pearl Street to Habitat for Humanity. Our purpose was, it was an empty lot. Our purpose, as always, is to try to create housing. We deeded them to construct a single family home on the lot, which they have done, and they sold the property to a homeowner and deeded the property to them in 2021. The issue that we're here tonight is that when we sold the property, we created a development agreement with Habitat, telling them to, basically do what you said you were going to do, which is build this property. We also, in that development agreement, which we do with all of our city properties now, is we don't want a property to, if we're going to give away a property, we don't want it to turn around and become tax exempt if it's sold to an entity that's tax exempt. So our development agreement and the deed required 100% of the payments be paid in lieu of taxes for whoever owns the property going forward. But we didn't anticipate that it was sold to a property owner that would be a normal, regular property taxpayer who should be eligible for the homestead exemption. Because the way it's worded of 100% of the taxes, they're not eligible for the homestead exemption. So what we're looking to do is amend the deed and the development agreement that indicated that 100% to put in wording that if it is sold to a homeowner who is eligible for the homestead exemption, they are allowed to get the homestead exemption, and then the taxes would just be the difference of that. We may see this going forward because my assumption is that we probably have that in a number of our development agreements. So as this happens, we will come back for this same permission, but we will modify new development agreements to take this into effect.
Council Foyer?
I was just gonna make a motion.
Second,
Without any objection, this item has approval, and then we have some school loan, revolving loan fund issues.
Yeah, so this has been talked about at a couple of meetings. This is our referral from last week's full council meeting. It was talked about at finance as well as during the budget process. The school department received approval for funding under the school revolving renovation fund. It was a loan of about little over 4.1 million. 57.06% of that, or roughly 2.3 million, will be forgiven. The remaining portion of the loan will be paid over a 10-year period at 0% interest. It's a very good loan program. The projects are going to be used to fund ongoing projects multi-year projects have been going on, failing exterior wall at Bangor High, failing exterior wall at 14th Street School, new code compliant roof for the heating plant at Fairmount School, and to fix the roof structure and meet what code requirements of the Mary Snow School. So this is, again, went to full council last week for first reading. This is a referral to committee for approval, and it'll be on next week's full council meeting for final approval, assuming you're okay with getting a pretty good deal on this loan.
Questions for Dave, the school department's business director? Anything? Saying none, Councilor Dean.
Sorry, I do have a question. A couple of these schools are slated perhaps to be moved into other facilities in the next few years.
Is that true? Good nod, now I'll go from there.
We have begun the application process with the state of Maine. The application is due by the end of August. The application will then be scored with every other,
All this is
request
to get the
in the
funding. to
state of
build the
Maine.
school. Okay,
and so it's an unknown at this point. You need to score well, obviously. It can take up to 10 years before a project would move up the list far enough to get
So
funded.
these projects couldn't. wait.
right, no, these need to
Just-
get done before.
We should Spend money on something that might not
I agree.
be there in the future.
Right, I would, right, we would agree with that, but where it is an unknown,
Mhm.
and if we're on a list for several years, this is just gonna get worse, so unfortunately, we do need to put some money into them now.
Makes sense.
All right, no other questions,
make
the
a
motion moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to recommend this to the council, without objection, this has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is to accept and appropriate $200,000 in the Maine Emergency Medical Services Stabilization and Sustainability Program funds. So this is grant money through our fire department. Again, this was on last week's full council meeting for first reading. This is the referral to the committee. In January, the council authorized them to apply for this grant. They were awarded $200,000 with no local match. The money is going to be used to enhance training and purchase new equipment for the EMS services at Bangor Fire. So this, we're here tonight for your approval. With that, it will be on next week's full council to go ahead and accept and appropriate that $200,000.
Okay, a quick question, was in this recent legislative session, was there some monies allocated to fire departments for first responders, mental health, or do we have to apply for those funds, or they automatically come in?
Yep, so Jeremy, I'll you mentioned for the fire department. That's a separate program than what this one is. This was
Right.
the sustainability
Right,
fund.
but I mean, that program, is that something we automatically gonna get, or we have to apply?
That would be something we would have. to
Okay,
do.
right,
Yep.
and it hasn't come out yet, has it?
It is not. not that
Okay.
I know of.
Okay. Any other questions, Council Fornia?
What specific equipment?
Yes. So essentially, we're gonna be doing several years ago, we purchased 3 automatic CPR devices to do compressions. We have 2 spare ambulances that often are in service as frontline trucks, and 1 goes down for maintenance. So this would put 2 more, get us 2, so all of our ambulances are equipped for the same. Also some new training mannequins. The training mannequins we have now are very old, over 10 years old. They've been used very regularly and are very worn out, so we'll be able to enhance our training we're able to do in-house. With getting enough to actually put at least 1 mannequin, if not a couple, at each of our 3 fire stations, so the crews on duty in their free time can do some training. Video laryngoscope, so when we're doing intubations, we have 3 right now on our frontline trucks, again, looking to get 2 more to kind of make sure all of our spare trucks are all equipped, so we don't have to switch equipment over. Also some online training platform, so our crews can do training online to keep up with. Every year, we have to do so many education hours to maintain our EMS licenses. So we do training in-house now every month. It'll be another way for crews to kind of go on their own time or on duty to do that. With that comes a technology need, though. There's only so many computers for 22 people on duty, so it would also be getting some iPads dedicated just for that program. And then 50,000 of that would be for specialty classes for training, having outside instructors come in for the various classes that we can't teach internally. And then about 64,000 of that was to basically reimburse us for the payroll costs for the people we had in that EMT program. So all of that together equals 200,000.
Great. Any other questions or motion?
I make a motion.
Second, move to second, without any objection, this says approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is another grant. This is in February, the council gave approval to apply for a grant under the Maine Historic Preservation Commission as a certified local government. We applied for a $30,000 grant, but unfortunately, we weren't awarded the full grant. We were only awarded a $15,000 grant. It does have a local match of $3,750. With the lower amount, staff recommendation is that we will use that to fund activities on surveying State Street mansions, the 2 Grange halls in the city, as well as providing educational outreach to developers and realtors. And if there's any funds left over, we will expand architectural surveys in the tree streets and potentially the city parks. I will say I did include a copy of the council order in your packet. I indicated that it would be going to consent next week, but this is actually going to be a first reading next week because of the local match. We can't just accept and appropriate the money. It does need to go to 2 readings. So that was an error on my part.
All right, any questions or motion on this item?
I make a motion.
A second.
Second, without any objection, this has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is another grant. It's grant night. This is to amend and accept and appropriate $423,443 from the Overdose Prevention and Naloxone Distribution Program. The state is expanding the program and would like to, or is willing to provide an additional $423,000 and of the program to purchase naloxone kits and for distribution throughout Aroostook, Washington, Hancock, Scottsbluff, and Penobscot counties. We have been doing this grant since 2008. The contract was expanded in 2020 to include the naloxone purchases. And again, in 2021 to include kits for emergency responders. The original approval of the grant was back in June of 23, which was almost just under 2.1 million. But again, this is an additional 423,000 that we could receive to expand this program into those counties. So we're looking for approval, and this would go next week for first reading.
I make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Without any objection, this item has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is another grant. This is to accept and appropriate $875,589 for the Maine Prevention Network. This would be a 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2024. This is with our Department of Health and Human Services and to implement the Maine Prevention Network in the Penquist Public Health District. This is to provide services for substance use prevention, tobacco prevention, promote healthy eating and active living throughout the Penquist Public Health District. So Bangor Public Health will provide the direct prevention services in Penobscot County, and then we will subcontract with other services in Piscataquis County to Northern Light Mayo Community Outreach. This again would be on next week's agenda for first reading with approval tonight.
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
I do have a point, and I just want to see, Jamie, is this the grant that is being reduced?
Yes, by about 20% it is from FY 24 that we're in right now. Yes.
So it's not only Bangor Public Health, but we're seeing other health, public health agencies and providers are seeing a reduction in funding for prevention grants. So it's not unique to us, but it's something you want to be aware of. For in this instance, there are likely areas that we won't be able to have the kind of relationship we've had in the past. So we're going to have to be kind of shrinking our footprint a little bit in some ways. Is that accurate, Jamie?
Yeah, and I would say the frustrating thing is that the money is there it is, our contracts are being reduced statewide for the main prevention network. Because the contracts were underspent for the first 18 months of the grant, which was a kickoff period. And many projects had to hire staff and figure things out and gain traction. And so anyway, there's a lot to it, but it's frustrating because there will be staff. I calculated the personnel hours, and from this current fiscal year to next fiscal year, which is what the item is in front of you, here alone in Penobscot County, we'll be losing the equivalent hours of 1.44 FTEs. There will potentially be reductions at Mayo Community Outreach. There will be reductions in prevention staff all over the state, and the money is there. They just won't give it to us.
Yeah, I actually was gonna ask if we would have to cut, so 1.5 position. And is this tobacco settlement money this comes from?
Yeah, there's a combination. Most of it is tobacco settlement funding, and then some of it is substance use prevention funding. The substance use prevention funding portion was cut, I think, by 20%, and then the tobacco was cut by somewhere around 14%. And then altogether, I think it was like a 14% cut in the way that there are 3 different funding kind of domains that flow through. But the majority is the tobacco funding, yes.
Thanks. Any other questions on this? It's been moved and seconded. With any further discussion, no objections, this has passage.
I just have a
Yeah.
question.
Councilor Kabak?
So if there is a reduction now, does it mean in the future there will be similar, or it might be less reduction or more reduction?
Yeah, good question. What we were told from the beginning of, let's see, as we were moving to plan for this year, we were told expect flat funding from the program people at the Maine CDC. Then apparently the Department of Contract Management decided to right-size the budgets and cut them. And then we're trying to get clarity about whether or not, because we were also told that if we spent our budgets, then we could have the possibility of getting what was cut back. So we're trying to figure out now if that is true. How do you do that? Keep in mind also that we develop work plans for our work for this year in advance of these this budget cut. So the work plans are based on the old higher amount of funding. So there are things that need to be now, the work plans need to be downsized in order to reflect the budget cut. So to answer your question, there is always a possibility of more funding and less funding, depending on how things are going. So if, for example, the state has done a good job of grant writing and big grants come in, then we can see usually that would happen in substance use prevention increases. We also know that there will be, there are several substance use prevention funding streams right now that are bundled into this contract that are set to expire. So you never really know. There's also some tobacco funding, they call it a cliff, that we're looking ahead to also, and that has to do with the amount of money coming in from the settlement is going to be lower than it has in the past, and that expenditures are greater than they have been in the past, creating kind of a perfect storm of not enough money and too many programs being funded. So, but this is not new. This is how it always goes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. All right. MOU with main access points.
So next is council order to execute a MOU with main access points. This is in regards to naloxone. The city would utilize grant funding to purchase $93,153 worth of naloxone kits on behalf of main access points, and then we will transfer the kits to them for distribution through their statewide service area. This is something that has been done on a regular basis. So with your approval, this will go to full council next week. And approval there, we will then execute the contract to start that process.
Any questions or a motion on the same?
I make a motion. You have a question? No,
All right,
okay.
moved and seconded without any objection, this item has passage.
Thank you. Our next item is for authorization to apply for a Homeland Security grant in the amount of $35,000 to purchase an unmanned aerial system or drone for those that are using the common language. This drone would be used by both our police and fire department. There's multiple uses that they could be used for crime scene, searching for individuals who may be lost, fire scenes for police and fire, water and rescue response. It's been this project and having a drone on hand has been talked about with the council before. We found some grant funding to purchase it. So we're looking for a approval to apply. With approval, it'll go to full council next week. Assuming approval there, our grant writer will submit the application in conjunction with the police and fire departments, and hopefully we will get approval.
All right, any questions or a motion on this item?
I make a motion.
Second.
Second, only question, we don't have a drone, they don't have a drone at the department?
Nope.
Nope, not yet.
Interesting.
Without any objection, this item has approval.
Our next item is another Homeland Security grant. This is through the Maine Emergency Management Agency, both again for police and fire. This is in the amount of $91,247. This is again a request to apply for the grant. Our goal is, if awarded, we would use the money to support our technical rescue for training and new equipment, the explosive ordnance disposal team for training, the special response team for training and equipment, and $10,000 would go toward the mobile command vehicle for maintenance costs. With approval, this again would be on next week's full council meeting for authorization to apply, and then we will submit that grant application.
Okay, any questions or a
I
motion?
make a motion.
Councilman.
I'll second. I actually just have one question on the EOD portion of this grant. Just general question, like, is it a human training or are we using like a machine to like do explosive ordnance disposal? Or is it just in general training on operations?
Hi, Dave Bushy, Deputy Police Chief. So the EOD portion is used for a combination. They do have a robot that they use on their team, but it's also used for funding for the officers that are on that team.
Roger, okay.
So a combination.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes,
I made the motion.
yeah, so we had a second,
Maybe that's-
Council Leonard, so without any objection, that has passage and on to interim
Thank you.
financials.
So I provided the interim financials through March of 2024. And listed out, we can go into as much detail as you would like. Typically, if if everything was equal and you divided the budget through March, we would have spent about 75% or brought in 75% of our anticipated revenues or expenses. You'll see I have a column that shows the actual percentage compared to full budget. Some categories are skewed, but that is due to the timing of how things are recorded. The first line under revenues, property taxes, you'll see that is around 96, almost 97%, and that is because real estate taxes are posted in July when they're committed. So on the revenue side, they are fully posted at that point, and then throughout the year, we catch up to that budget amount. They become a receivable at that point. The other taxes that would be included in that line are like the annual excise taxes and those types of things. Licenses and permits, those are higher than anticipated. That is due to an increase in building permits as well as the new vacant building registry. That has caused them to be above budget, which is good. The other items, most of the other items are fairly in line. The one that is sort of out there is the 42% under the other. And that is transfers from fund balance, insurance settlements, fund balance transfers that are approved as part of the budget typically don't occur until the end of the year, so those wouldn't happen until June. Insurance settlements, sale of assets that's just, if they happen, they happen, and when they happen, they happen. So there's no way to budget for when that money, any of that money will even come in if we don't have any. We do, so most of that is just related to transfers, which some have not occurred yet. Is there any questions on the revenue side?
Council Forty.
Just new building permits? Is
Yes.
that, so it's all new
There
building?
was an increase in building permits. I don't know if they were new or just
Renovations.
renovations, but there was an increase in the number of them and the money being
Yeah.
brought in from them.
Do you have a breakdown of that? Like, not right now,
I
but
can get you one.
yeah, it'd be great. Yeah.
New versus renovation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of good to know.
Other
Thank you.
questions?
So on to the expenditure side, again, same thing. Typically, we'd be around 75%, but there are some categories that get skewed due to various reasons. Most of the overall, if you look at overall our budget, if we would be at 75%, our total expenditures through March are around 70, so in theory, we're under budget for our expenditures. None of the categories are over 100%, so we've not overspent in any category. Some of the departmental categories that are low are related to staffing shortages. Even though we're filling most of those positions, they weren't filled at the beginning of the year. So any 2 or 3 months or more of empty staffing is always going to create some savings. Some of the other ones, like central services, looks odd at 44. That's a timing issue of when bills are sent out to other departments. Same as the motor pool, looks really weird at a -8%. That is because we do a significant charge in July to outside departments. And it takes pretty much the whole year for that to get caught back up. It's not done on a monthly basis. We charge it out right at the beginning of the year. It's a credit line for them, which is why it puts them into a negative. It's recouping money from other departments that they do work for and rentals of vehicles that they get the revenue from or non-expenses from. Some of the other ones, economic development at 48, that was because Ann was short-staffed for a long time. So that will hopefully will not be like that next year. And down, like pensions are down at 8%, but that is because our pension obligation bond debt is due in May. So that's once that gets paid, it's in the June, late May, early June, that will catch that back up. So there isn't anything that really jumped out from looking at it from my perspective that we have any real concerns with at this point through our budget period. The transfers and other agencies, those are up at 99%, but that is because those are typically done at the beginning of the year. So that's why they're higher. It's not like there's going to be substantially more that's going to put them over. Those transfers and things have already been done. That's other agencies is the library. We've already paid them, or we pay them on a quarterly basis. The county taxes, those types of things.
Council Forty.
So we come in with RKO.
He was making it.
I was making adjustments today and just before the meeting. Those will be sent tomorrow. And I don't know.
Soon,
Yes, the answer's been soon for
Yeah.
too long now.
that's fine. I just,
They did lose some staff, so they've had to rearrange things, but I keep trying to push as much as we can push, knowing that they have other clients that are in the same situation.
Other questions? Thanks. Anything else tonight?
That's all I got.
All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you.